Okay, let's begin. First of all, thank you all for coming back again. I'm repeating this class because there were a lot of people that wanted to hear it that couldn't come the first time. So I thought I would do it. This is going to be probably a 12-part series. Don't worry about it. If you don't come for, if you miss one or whatever, you want to watch the recording, I think each class has there's always what to take away from it, which I think is the hallmark of Chabad Academy. Each class is a standalone class. So if you can only make it once, it's okay. If you want to come a month later, there's not like one long, as we call it, a hemshich. It's not like a continuation. Each class is a standalone class. Come and go as you please. So we are going to, or I am going to present to you I'm going to start what's called Bayit Sheni. Bayit Sheni, the second temple period, which is approximately 500 BCE up until the year 0 of the Common Era, right? It'll be post the story of Purim, and then I will go all the way until modern day history, and then I'll go back to Joshua, starting from Joshua and Gidon and further on. And the reason why I'm starting with Bayit Sheni, the second temple period, is because this is when modern day Judaism, the way we understand Judaism now, was formulated. The way we practice Judaism before the destruction of before, I guess, the destruction of the first temple. So from Joshua up until, Mordechai and Esther, looked very different than the way the way we practice Judaism now. And we had lived in Israel that entire period of time. Excuse me. And it'll be interesting to note that Judaism wasn't always like a very spiritual. The concept of spirituality, of Mashiach, wasn't known to the Jewish people. It was kind of like our Bubbies and Zaydis lived in Russia. They knew how to keep kosher in their house, but they didn't understand any of it. They knew the mechanics of what they were doing, and it was just a way of life. It was a culture, but they didn't actually know they didn't understand the meanings behind it. So that didn't happen really until Ezra. Ezra and Nehemiah, which we will start with, and then we will move on to the Greek period, and then on to the Hashmonaim period, and then we'll move on to the Roman period. So there's really 4 parts I'm going to break this into, which is the Persian period, and then the post-Persian period, then on to the Greek period, Hashmonaim period, and then the Roman period. And then we'll move on from there. So let's start with 500 BCE. In 500 BCE, what else is going on in the world? Buddha is coming onto the stage. He's living in Nepal, I guess. I don't know much about Buddhism. You have Confucius coming onto the stage in China, and you have Greek culture and literature, Greek philosophy and literature is being written at this period of time. Now, we are post the story of Esther and Mordechai and the story of Purim. We don't exactly know when that happened. There's actually a debate. The name Esther itself, which means hidden, tells us not only was, God hidden, the spirituality part of it, but the whole story is like shrouded in, it's hidden. Like we don't really know. The rabbis, the sages don't really agree as to exactly when it happened, how everything really went down, because it's perhaps not that important. It's more important to know what the lesson is and what's the everlasting message. But in terms of history, we don't exactly know when it happened. But about the year 500 BCE is what we're going to have over. Okay, so what happened like this? Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the first temple. He was part of the Babylonian Empire. A lot of the Jews, he was like a typical emperor and maniac. He came into your country, destroyed it completely, took you as slaves, and brought you to his place, tried to steal all your resources, etc., etc. Then, basically, overnight, he was defeated by Cyrus. And Cyrus wasn't such a bad guy. Cyrus came over, and he was from the he was from the Persian Empire. So he began the Persian Empire. And Cyrus had a new way of ruling. He said, you know what? Everybody keep your religion. Go back to where you were. Do whatever you want. You just have to pay us a tax, and whatever we need, we get to take. So it wasn't like such a bad. He revolutionized the way we conquered a city or conquered a place. So he even gave us permission to go back to Jerusalem and build the temple, which is basically what we wanted to do. And you had Mordechai, who did not, he was not able to go back. Sorry, Mordechai and Esther are not here yet. Yeah, Cyrus comes, they go back. They start heading back, led by Zerubbabel and led by Yeshua HaTzadok. Zerubbabel was the grandson of the last Jewish king. Yeshua HaTzadok was the grandson of the last Kohen Gadol, of the last high priest. Ezra, Mordechai, all these people are alive. Ezra did not want to go back. Ezra, the scribe, who was going to be very significant, we'll talk about him in a moment. He did not want to go back because he was a Kohen as well. He was a Kohen, and he felt that if he went back to Jerusalem, people would want him to be the Kohen Gadol. There would be a bit of a scuffle, a war. Yeah, you'd have two sides, Yeshua Tzadok, and you'd have Ezra, and people would pick sides, and it would cause a big problem. So Ezra said, I'm going to stay back, and I'm going to remain in Babylonia, but I totally support this mission, and I will try to gather funds to go. Cyrus, the Jews end up going back there. There are these Samaritans that live in that area. They sabotage the whole project. And we end up Achashverosh. There's a couple of kings. Achashverosh becomes king. Everybody has to come back down to Babylonia. And they come back down to Babylonia. Not everybody, but for the most part, everybody comes back down to Babylonia because there's no money, there's no economy, there's no education system in Jerusalem. It's not a place to raise a family. It's not a place to really thrive. So we come back down. The whole story of Purim happens. Achashverosh is married to Esther. He does not allow the construction of the temple. In fact, he celebrates the destruction of the temple. He dies. Now Esther and Achashverosh have a child, and his name is Darius or Daryavish. Now, it's not clear whether he was like a very frum guy. I don't think he really was. I'm sure he was heavily influenced by his father and the position that he was in. But he did listen to his mother. It seems pretty clear that he listened to his mother, Esther. Esther said you should allow your people, the Jewish people, to go back and build the temple. Let them go back to Jerusalem. And this time he says yes, and he sends money. He gives them money to go build the temple. And this time Ezra says, I'm going to join this trip. Mordechai remains in Babylonia looking after, not Babylonia. He remains in Persia looking after his niece, perhaps his wife. Yeah, it's unclear exactly who she was in relation to Mordechai. And he joins in the politics, much to the chagrin of the Sanhedrin. Yeah, if you guys read carefully at the end of the Megillah, Mordechai there was a bit of a disdain for Mordechai because he got involved in politics. Yeah, okay. It says that he was respected by most of his friends. Basically what it says, meaning not all. So now Ezra goes back and he leads. He doesn't lead so many people. No, not so many people are very interested in going to Jerusalem. He comes back with a couple of the last prophets. Anybody know who they are? Yeah, I'll tell you. Zechariah, Haggai, and Zechariah. Haggai and Zechariah, and then there's Malachi. Now, Malachi might actually be Ezra. We're not exactly sure. He wrote Malachi. Whether Malachi is actually a prophet, we're not really sure. But Haggai and Zechariah, Ezra, they all head back up to Jerusalem. During this period of time, by the way, there is another temple in operation. Does anybody know what it's called? There's actually a temple. There was a Jewish colony in the middle of the Nile River. A lot of Jews went to Egypt. It's going to become a center of place, a center of Judaism. Anybody know the name of this temple? It's a Jewish. They're offering karbanis. They're offering ketores. Yeah, they're bringing. Who knows? Anybody know? Nobody knows. Elephantine. Elephantine is a little island in the middle of the Nile River, and there was a Jewish colony that built there, and they're totally moving on with having a temple and karbanis, ketores, oil regel. They're doing all the things that you want to do in a Jerusalem temple, which shows us the Judaism was like not very. People didn't really understand what they were doing. They had never been in Gullus before. The concept of exile was foreign. They didn't even know if God spoke to them. If you look inside letters during this period of time, they don't even know if God spoke to the Jewish people outside the land of Israel. Once the land of Israel, we got kicked out. Do we even have a God anymore? Are we still even a people? We don't even know. We're certainly not a culture. Ezra is going to come and play a major factor to all this. So eventually, the temple in Elephantini and the temple that Ezra's building, they have different priests and Kohanim, and they talk to each other. They're not super excited about what's going on in Elephantini, but they keep the peace and they try to convince them to come back and say, you shouldn't really be there. That's essentially what happened. Eventually, it ended. Ezra came back and he was appalled to see the Jewish state of affairs, the Jews that were living there at the period of time, the Jews that were coming back. Now, the Jews that were coming and leaving Persia to come to Jerusalem, you can't, let's think about who they were. Now, there was no economy, there was no society, there was no culture, there was no schools. So in order for you to leave a place where Jews had relative prosperity and living in Persia, there were schools, there were many different shuls, perhaps. They certainly had good business. Life was pretty good there. Why would you want to leave and do a startup nation? Yeah, you're going to go start up a nation. So one of two types of people are going to go there. Major Charedim, very frum, religious Hasidic Jews, for the most part, are going to go. Or it's people who have nothing in Persia anyway, and I have nothing to lose. Let me, I'm not going to lose anything. Let me go join this. So it was a very pitiful state of people that came, major ignoramuses. And Ezra is going to come and he's going to arrive in Jerusalem and he's going to see how much work he has to do. And the state of the Jewish people, it was so great to him that he sat Shiva. He mourned, he tore his clothing and he sat Shiva. And he explained to them, and this is going to be a pivotal point in Jewish history. This is going to change everything for Judaism. Ezra is going to be the first one to explain that Judaism is not only a culture. We are a spiritual people. And it's not only about temple and sacrifices, which many Jews believed. It's about the focal point is Torah learning and who we are. And we are not like other nations. We are separate from the other nations. And he had to say that we are separate from other nations because intermarriage rate was 100%, something like that. I think it was a 100% intermarriage rate. And he said, you can't, marriage is really one soul. He introduces the whole concept of, he basically brings to light Kabbalistic insights that really we are one soul, a male and a female are one soul that came into this world and we became split in half. And then there's the wedding where they become reunited and one, the beginning of the process of becoming one once again. You cannot have a Jew and a non-Jewish soul. We're talking about a real Jew and a non-Jewish soul, not perhaps conversion, which means you really have a Jewish soul, but the body needs to have some sort of correction for it to be able to express itself. We're talking about it's not going to work. And he talks to them individually, and there was like a 100% divorce rate, which was my quiz question today. Did Moses' parents divorce? And they did, right? Well, maybe we'll talk about that later, different class. Yeah, there was a 100% divorce rate. None of the Jews had a bris milah. He brought on a bris milah, and he enacted 10 enactments, the very famous 10 enactments, decrees, gezeros, but not all of them were kept up by the Jewish people. Most notably, the one that was not kept up, meaning people did not accept it. He tried to push it, but people didn't accept it, is if a man had a nocturnal emission at night, he was not allowed to study Torah until he went to the mikvah. It was very difficult, I guess, for back in the day, whatever. So that never took place. But what were some other ones that he decreed? That the Torah should be read on Mondays and Thursdays, and another decree is that it should be read on Mincha by Shabbat. And the reason why Mincha by Shabbat is because people who work during the week might not be able to hear the Torah reading. At least they'll hear some part of that week's Torah reading. Men should eat garlic on Friday, so that they'll be very. It produces a lot of sperm. It's very interesting. I don't know if that took, but that was one that he decreed, because so that Friday night will be a night of procreation. He reinstituted the Sanhedrin, the Anshe Knesset Hagdola. He brought back the Anshe Knesset Hagdola, and most notably, one of the big things that he did was he created the temple. He began construction of the temple, the second temple period. The problem is nobody had any money. And nobody even had the mindset to be able to begin this construction project. You had a few Hasidic Jews, Haredim, they never have any money. And they're all flabby skinned. They got no muscle. They eat nothing. They eat carobs. They can't even lift a finger to help in any way. Not like the Chassidim of nowadays. They're So this construction period really had a tough time getting off the ground. It did begin, and he was able to reinstate the altar. I feel like it's worth noting over here, as you all know, the ark was not right. The Ark of the Covenant, the Aron Kodesh, was not in the Holy of Holies. It was somewhere deep under the ground, and it's been there since the destruction of the first temple, right? So, but yet the temple, when they built the altar, they built the Holy of Holies, and they went in there and they offered ketoris, incense offering, and did everything as if it was there. How could you possibly do that if the ark is not in its proper place? The answer is, who knows? There are two places for the ark. I always feel people don't realize this. There are two places that the ark is allowed to be. One is inside the Holy of Holies, and another is deep down where Solomon built a little chamber. It could be there as well, and that's where it remains till today. So the temple was actually never fully destroyed, which has major significance. He is not able to really get the construction going. So who does he bring? He brings his good old pal from Babylonia, who's got money and he's got charisma. He's able to fundraise. Nehemiah comes. Ezra gets a little bit old. You should do laundry on Thursday. That's another decree. Isn't that funny? You should do laundry on Thursday. Nehemiah comes and he brings. He's a master fundraiser, and what he really does is he brings home the temple. The temple's going to go through many construction periods, but this is like he rebuilds the walls, the necessary walls, the walls surrounding Jerusalem. Now people can carry inside an Erev if they need to. And Nehemiah really takes the role over here. And things begin to sort of take shape, and Jews are eventually coming back. They say, you know what? There's economy. Nehemiah is able to get an economy going, and establish a society, a culture, bring people in, trade. I mean, this is the task that they were undertaking. It wasn't just building a temple. It was building a nation and a country founded on Torah, and creating a temple. Incredible feat. Why is Ezra called Ezra the scribe? Just some people would like to know. He's called Ezra the scribe, a scribe because he was a scribe. He wrote the Torah, but he wrote the Torah exactly the way that Moses gave it to us. He knew how to do it, and all Torahs became copies of that Torah. You know, that was the what's the word I'm looking for? They would look inside. That was the prototype, whatever. They would look inside his Torah and then write other Torahs from there, and he became Ezra the scribe. But Ezra clearly did a tremendous amount more than a scribe. He wrote Malachi, which is the last book of the prophets, which tells us about Mashiach. Well, one of the places that talks about Mashiach. And some say he is Malachi. He wrote Malachi. Malachi was his own prophet. It's not very clear. Like Eov. Yeah, we don't know who it was. Eov really a person? Was it Moses? And was it a pen name? Was it just a made up story? But it had a Torah lesson. Obviously had spiritual lessons to it. We have a lot of things like this. Fine. So for the next 170 years, 270 years, things are moving on A-okay. Then 170 years. Then what happens? There's a great king, a young man, interesting guy. He comes from Greece. And he's conquering the world from Greece all the way to India. Now, what is his name? Anybody know? Very good. Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great is coming and he's conquering. Now, what do you say? Alexander. Very good. Alexander the Great. He comes and he takes over. Now, Israel and Jews are always in the middle. Wherever the known world is, we're in the center. And there's obvious reasons for that. Number one, you have to know that Israel is the gate to the east. Yeah, so anybody who's coming from Europe, traveling to the Mediterranean and wants to trade in the east, like India, China, whatever they want to get over there. So we're right on that border over there. So we're always in the center. So Alexander the Great is really on his way to India, but he's going to stop by Jerusalem. And he wants to conquer Jerusalem. Jerusalem has something significant. It has political significance. It has spiritual significance. It's a pilgrimage place, and he's very interested in it. Famous story, he comes up, and Shimon HaTzadik comes out. He's the Kohen Gadol. He comes out in his 8 garments of the Kohen Gadol as the high priest. And Alexander the Great gets off his horse and says, "You're the person I envision every time I win a battle. There's a vision that comes in my mind, and it's this regal person. And now I see that it is you, and I will not conquer Jerusalem. It becomes a province of Greece, but he doesn't kill everybody. He lets everybody live, and they can continue on doing what they're doing, and the temple still exists and everything like that. And Alexander, and as appreciation for that, as Hakaras Hatov, recognizing, giving thanks, all the Kohanim, the priests, named their firstborn males Alexander. And Alexander then becomes a Jewish name. Now, okay, Alexander the Great, he dies very young. He dies at about the age of 30, 36, something like that. Then who takes over? He has two generals, Ptolemy and Seleucus. Ptolemy takes Egypt. It's going to come into play very soon. Seleucus takes over Syria. Now, Alexander the Great, what he was really trying to do, it wasn't so much about Greece, like Greece and Greek culture, or Greece becoming the ultimate, one big Greek empire. That's not what happened. Everyone stuck to what Cyrus was all about. Cyrus, right? You be you just pay us a tax. Now, what Alexander the Great did, and this is going to become so significant, is that he created something called Hellenism. Hellenism was very fashionable. A Hellenist wakes up in the morning and he thinks about how beautiful his mind is, how strong the body is, how beautiful the body is, how beautiful the mind is, how incredible a human is, and devoid of anything spiritual. It's whatever you can measure, that's real. And it becomes very fashionable. He dies. Now Ptolemy and Seleucus have to convince people that they are the best thing that happened since Alexander the Great. So they split up the kingdom and they try to out-Hellenize one another. So Seleucus is in Syria and Ptolemy is in Egypt, and they convince that they start really bringing on Hellenism. And it's so fashionable that people really get into it. It was very trendy. Okay. Famously, now we're going to go about 90 years later to 240 BCE. Ptolemy famously takes 70 rabbis on the border of the southern border of Judea. That's what they called it. And he brings them into a room, or it's 70 different rooms in Egypt, and he has them translate the Torah into Greek, which is a very Hellenistic Greek idea to do. Take your most prized possession, the most spiritual thing that you might have, dissect it, make it very secular, etc., etc. Now, some people might see it as a very, we can benefit from that. It was able to Torah had now reached a level that the masses can understand it. More people can understand it. People basically spoke Greek then. Even the Jews, they were very much caught into culture and business and commerce, that it became like here living in America. Yeah, we have Yiddish, but to be honest, English is more of speaks to me much more. So what was the significance and why was it so tragic? It happened on Asara B'Tevis just about a month ago. No, a month ago. What are we talking about? Today's what? Chav Tevis? 10 days ago, whatever. We had a fast on Friday. This is one of the things. Actually, it happened on Ches Tevis. Whatever. It happened about 2 weeks ago. And it said there was darkness for 3 days when he did this. And the idea is because now it took away the spiritual aspect. It became studied as like a secular subject. And the divinity of the Torah was like devoid. And we moved away from the true revelation of Torah. And we've paid for this translation with our blood. I mean, it brought on Christianity and all these different things. We're going to talk about the Nazarenes at some point pretty soon. I don't know if in this class or the next class, who they were, but they looked at the Torah. Anybody can understand the Torah, so to speak, and they were finding problems with the Torah. And it was confusing us. It would confuse the average Jew. And which was never really an issue while it still remained in the Hebrew. The problem is a lot of people, they say, what do you mean? It says this such and such in the Torah. Yeah, I walk down the street, people stop me all the time, non-Jews, and they say, I want to ask you something about, it says like this and this. The problem is, I understand why they're making this. I understand they're reading in English, and I understand what they're trying to say, but it's so lost. I'm like, I have to show you in the Hebrew. It's so lost in translation what you're saying. There's so many nuances to what therefore you're going way off course over here. It means, did King David actually sin? King David didn't actually sin, but you have to actually know the Hebrew to be able to understand it. Anyway, we've paid with our We paid with many blood, and we saw that coming. Anyway, Ptolemy, Ptolemy dies, and he's no, not Ptolemy. Seleucus dies, and he's replaced by Antiochus III. Antiochus III was charismatic. He loved the Jews. He major Jew supporter, charismatic, unpredictable. Yeah, sounds like Donald Trump in my opinions. And he's become pretty popular, and he's all about Jews. You do what you want to do. I'll give you resources. I'll give you what you want to do. He still pushes Hellenism, but like he's not ready to start up any problems over here. And he's like, yeah, we'll win them with kindness. But he was very good. He was very good to us. There was a growing entity going on at the same time, and it's called Rome. Rome started. I know that I'm not going into great detail, by the way. These are just what we call headlines. These are just headlines. Yeah, I could do other series in each one of these things, and I probably will in the future. But I know that I'm moving fast. We have thousands of years to get through. So I'm just giving you major headlines. Yeah, so don't be mad at me. I know that some of you are asking questions. Rome is becoming a major player, and they are starting to they're starting to get some battles, and they're going to fight. They're going to make it's going to come to a head. They're actually going to fight. They're going to make a battle with Antiochus III. Antiochus III is going to lose. He's in charge of the Syrian entity. He's going to lose, and he's going to have to pay reparations, which is going to be a bit of a problem. And he eventually he sends his own son Antiochus IV as a hostage. Woody Allen has a joke that he said I had a number in Vietnam, and they said, "What's your number?" He said, "I'm P3." They're like, "What's P3?" He says, "In case of a war, I'm a hostage." Whatever. So he sends his son, Antiochus III sends his son, Antiochus IV, to be a hostage, and he's got to come up with a lot of money. Everybody just wants money. All these wars start because people need bread and people need money. It's essentially what's going on. So they need money. So he's going around raiding different temples. He raids the wrong temple, which is a temple in northern Iran. He gets killed. And Antiochus IV is the Antiochus that we know. And he's going to take over, and he's going to push back the Romans a bit. And he's really going to take Hellenism. He doesn't have a problem with the Jews. He's got a problem with spirituality. Yeah, we all know the story. And he has a bit of a problem with Jews. And you can imagine the fact that his father sold him into slavery, and he went into jail, and he was a hostage. And I'm sure the Romans were pretty barbaric. His psychology, the psychological makeup of Antiochus IV is going to be quite messed up, to say the least. So that's why he's probably going to do what he wants to start to do. Okay, Hellenism becomes very, very trendy and very, very popular because obviously so. I always like joke with my wife that if I lived in communist Russia, I probably would have become a communist. I'm a addicted personality. I like comme ci comme ça. I like to go with the flow. And communism. What does communism offer? It offers if you're a Hasidic Jew living in Russia, in Leningrad or whatever, you're starving. There's nothing. There's no school for you. Your kids have no school. You're never going to get a job. You're never going to be able to get out of the country. The only way you're going to survive is to become a communist or succumb to communist ideology. And many, 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 many Hasidim and Hasidic Jews did. Yeah, some of these great Hasidic leaders that we talk about, for those of you that take a lot of my classes, yeah, they went on incredible self-sacrifice. They had plenty of kids that became communists, no problem. Yeah, okay. So the Jews they're like, why do we need this? Like, everyone looks good. We're all running around naked. I don't have to worry about circumcision and paying for a extravagant bris party and all these different things. I can just do something small and whatever. And we're going to do it. It's going to be fine and great. And we're going to be loved and respected. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to have good land. I'm going to become a citizen of Rome. I can even become a citizen of Greece. Yeah. Some of them allow you to have citizenship, and you become accepted. So it becomes very difficult. And they say like this: there's no such thing as spirituality, and therefore, if I'm going to offer a sacrifice, I'm going to offer. Let me offer something more tasty, like a pig. Yeah, have a pig pull, and I'll give it to Zeus Olympus. Yeah, I'll go to the temple and I'll give it to Zeus Olympus. Who cares? It's a big deal. Now you can imagine there were some Charedim that really didn't like this. Namely, who were the ones that really didn't like it? The Chashmonaim family. Now, the Chashmonaim family is phase 2 in our people's history. Well, in the Bayit Sheni period. There's 4 periods in Bayit Sheni. Here comes the Chashmonaim period. The Chashmonaim period is going to be approximately in the year 160 BCE. Now, the Chashmonaim were a priest family, a Kohen family, and this is going to become very interesting, very significant. You're going to see the trend in the first temple period was really about kings. We talk about many different things. Achav, Rachav, David, Solomon. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of kings, a lot of problems with kings. Second temple period is all about priests. The priests are going to be the ones that really run the show, thanks to really the Chashmonaim. Well, Ezra was himself a Kohen, and he started it off. He kicked everything off. But the Chashmonaim are really going to they're going to take their priesthood into a whole new gear. And they're ultimately, it was a train wreck in very slow motion. That's essentially what's going to be. The Chashmonaim period and the Chashmonaim family and the Chashmonaim dynasty, that's their last names. Yeah, that's their family name. Chashmonaim is a train. It started off very great and ended up very, very tragic. Horrible. And it's ultimately going to lead to the destruction of the Second Temple. So comes the Chashmonaim family, the Maccabean revolt, as they would say. They defeated, oh gosh, it's already time. Okay, that was quick. They defeated, let me just say over here, and then we'll take it from the Mac. I mean, it's a good place to stop, to be honest. The Maccabean army, it was an incredible victory. What does it mean? There were 200 of them. It's like a shul, yeah? Our little shul over here, Beis Chabad. 200 families of flabby-skinned Torah scholars who never lifted anything in their life, and they eat, cupcakes in the morning, whatever the Rebbetzin brings over for us to eat after Shacharis, against like the U.S. Army. Incredible, unbelievable, and it really spoke to a lot of people. It was so unbelievable. Now we're going to eventually have full autonomy, and we're still going to have to fight. And one of the reasons for we win, it's incredible, and they end up rededicating the temple. But it's not like we had like full autonomy and we were fine and on our 2 feet. Excuse me. Rome is becoming a huge entity. They themselves are becoming very trendy, and we make treaties with Rome. Yeah, the Chashmonaim family, they're very smart. They're very shrewd. So not only were they were like everything. They were probably very good looking. They had a lot of money. They had a lot of respect. And they were hanging out with the Romans, and they were getting guns, supplies, infrastructure. And you can imagine if you're at the head of this, it's going to get to your head a little bit. And that's eventually what's going to happen. The Chashmonaim family is going to eventually take over and become a king. Now, priests are not allowed to become king. Kingship only belongs to the tribe of Yehuda, King David. Once King David became king, God said only King David and his family, which is the tribe of Judah, can become king. Kohanim come from the tribe of Levi. They are not allowed to become king. So they never call themselves king until basically they get to Shimon. That becomes a problem. He starts minting his own money with his face, and then Alexander Yanai is going to take it to a whole new level, and they're going to pelt him with a bunch of esrogim, which we'll get to next week, God willing. I'm sorry, we have to stop here. I can only do a half an hour. Anybody have any questions? Okay. So we're up to the Chashmonaim period. That's where I'm going to start, about 160 BCE, and we're going to start from there, and we'll move on. Hopefully, we'll get to basically Mark Antony. Next time, we'll get to Mark Antony with Cleopatra, Nero, Octavian, Julius Caesar. Herod comes into the play over here, and that's when Hillel comes in. He knows Herod. Yeah, they work together. And how does that all play out? We'll talk about that next week. All right, everybody.
Rob,
Thank you,
I
Rabbi.
have one question.
Thank you.
Sure, of course.
Thank you.
Of course.
Rob, how often are you having this class, and where can I find the recording?
I didn't put the recording up yet. I have to first end this class, and I'll put on a recording. But I will, the class, I will post on the WhatsApp group. If you guys are on the WhatsApp group, I'll post exactly when this next class will be. It'll hopefully be on a Monday, but I do teach, I don't just teach adults. I also teach kids. And I have a class. Sometimes I have a class at 12 o'clock. So I'll let you know if it's going to be at 12 o'clock next week or if it'll be at 1 o'clock. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No problem, everybody.
Thank you.
Hopefully see you soon. Yeah. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi.
Yeah, see you.